Hey everybody, welcome back. I know it's been a while since I've done a deck tech, but let's get this back on track. Last time I did a profile of my classic Haymaker deck, and this deck profile is going to be in a similar vein, where I'm discussing a classic deck from my base fossil battle box that I'm building. One of the other major deck of that era was Rain Dance, and that's what I've got for you today. Rain Dance gets its name from the base set Blastoise and its Pokemon power, which is called Rain Dance. It says that as often as you like during your turn, you get to attach a water energy card from your hand to one of your water Pokemon, provided Blastoise isn't asleep, confused, or paralyzed. And so this deck is built to take advantage of that by having a bunch of water type Pokemon that have heavy attack costs that Blastoise can power up rather quickly. So starting this deck off, there's 4 Squirtle. I know I only have 3 of the base set Squirtle and 1 of the Team Rocket Squirtle, but that's just what I have to work with. You need 4 Squirtles, because that's how you're going to evolve your Blastoise. I've also got 1 Wartortle, which sounds a little odd considering how many Blastoises there are in this deck, but the main way this deck wants to evolve Blastoise is with Pokemon Breeder, which I will cover in a little bit. Of course, I've got 3 of the Blastoise with the namesake Pokemon Power. This is a Pokemon you'll want to get out as early as possible so you can really start attaching. And one thing I thought I'd try in this deck is one of the Team Rocket Dark Blastoises. This Blastoise doesn't have a ton of hit points, it only has 70, but it has 2 pretty good attacks that work pretty well in this deck. The first one in particular that works really well is Hydro Cannon. 2 water energy for 30 damage, and it does 20 more for each extra water energy attached that's not used to pay for the attack's cost. So it can do up as much as 70 damage once it has 4 water energy attached to it, which is very good in this particular format where the hit points are a little lower. Of course, I should also mention Blastoise has an attack too, Hydro Pump, which works in a similar vein to the Dark Blastoise's Hydro Cannon. It does 40 damage base, plus an extra 10 for each extra water energy, so you can do up to 60 damage with this Blastoise. But you're more likely to have it on the bench to power up your other attackers instead of having it to do attacking, though that is an option. Other Pokemon I've got in here are 4 copies of the Fossil Lapras. It's a pretty big basic Pokemon, all things considered. 88 hit points is pretty high for a non-evolving basic Pokemon, especially during the time where this was popular to use. Its attacks don't do a ton of damage. It has a water gun, which can build as you put more water energy attached to it. It can do up to 30, and it also has Confuse Ray, which for 2 water does 10 damage, and you can flip a coin to cause confusion potentially. You have to get a heads on that. The reason Lapras is in here is because of the Jungle Mr. Mime. The Jungle Mr. Mime is a psychic type basic Pokemon with 40 hit points that has a annoying Pokemon power to get around. It's Invisible Wall, which if it's active, any attack that does 30 or more damage can't affect Mr. Mime. So you want to use Lapras and have one with 2 water energy attached to it so you can do as much damage as Mr. Mime's Invisible Wall Pokemon power will allow, so you can take it out rather quickly, as it can mess with this deck, as a lot of the deck's attackers can deal very high damage, and that's what this deck wants to do. One of the other big attackers is Articuno from Fossil. Has no weakness, which is very nice, and 70 hit points. And it has 2 big attacks. The biggest being its Blizzard. 50 damage for 4 water energy, and you get to flip a coin. If you get a heads, the attack also does 10 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. But if you get tails, it does 10 to each of your own bench Pokemon. It's still a very nice attack in this deck. And you also have Freeze Dry, which does 30 damage with a 50% chance of paralyzing. Very nice basic to have in a Rain Dance deck. Finally, I've got 3 copies of the Seal and 2 copies of the Dugong, both from base set. I know it says base set 2, but that was basically a reprint set anyway. But as for Dugong, it can deal 50 damage for just 3 energy, which is very handy to have in this deck. Very good on a stage 1. And that about does it for the Pokemon, so let's get into the trainer cards. Of course, this deck needs a lot of draw, so I've got 2 Professor Oaks, as well as 4 copies of Bill. So you can get water energy into your hand rather as quickly as possible, as well as your evolutions. Also have a Pokemon Trader. This allows you to choose a Pokemon from your hand and swap it with one from your deck, which can help you get your evolutions started a little bit more easier. I'd like to have another one, but I only have the 1 copy. Of course, I've got a couple copies of Computer Search. This allows you to search for pretty much any card in your deck. If you discard 2 cards from your hand, very nice to have. And this is the main way we're going to evolve Blastoise, and that's 4 copies of Pokemon Breeder. If you're familiar with Rare Candy in today's standard, it's pretty much the same card. It basically allows you to skip from the basic all the way to the stage 2 without having to go to the stage 1. It's also pretty much the only way to get Dark Blastoise into play, as I have no Dark Wartortle in this deck. So, very handy. That's why I've got 4 copies. Also got 3 Gust of Wind, which is always nice to have. Allows you to swap your opponent's Pokemon around so you can get those quicker knockouts. A couple copies of Energy Retrieval. I know this is the one from Evolutions, but I only had a few of the base set ones to go around. Basically, you just trade one, you just discard a card from your hand to get 2 basic energy cards back from your discard pile. And if you have to discard a bunch and you need some more water energies to use with Blastoise's power. I've got a Super Energy Removal, which is very handy. You discard an energy attached to one of your own Pokemon to discard up to 2 energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon. Very nice to have. Finally, an Item Finder that allows you to potentially reuse one of the trainers you've got. You just discard 2 cards from your hand and grab a trainer from your discard pile. Always a nice card to have and finally, the energy. Pretty much the rest of the deck is water energy. You need to attach as many water energies as you can to your Pokemon in play, so you can take advantage of Blastoise's power. And so we've got about 20 water energy here. And that about does it for this deck. I thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please consider leaving a like. And let me know what you think of these classic deck techs. I've got a couple more I still want to show you. So I will see you guys next time. And until then, good luck, have fun, and keep well.